Good.
All right, welcome to the April 8th, 2021 Buildings, Facilities, and Capital Expenditures Committee meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the
to the flag
to
of the United States of America,
and
and
Republic,
to the republic
which
which
stands
stands one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll jump right into Lincoln. If you have anything for a town administrator report that you want to share.
Sure. I don't think anything directly capital related. I did just get folks may have seen, I guess the one thing directly capital related is just sent around to the committee two additional capital articles that we've spoken about before, but for different reasons, and we can get into those later, were not included earlier, but it would be great to get a vote on from this committee. So it's the Chapter 90 monies, which I always believed did not need to be appropriated, but I did get an opinion today from the State Department of Revenue that they thought they should be appropriated. So we want to appropriate those. And the police cruiser, which, we've talked about whether or not that should be operating or capital. I talked some more with the police chief this week about it, and the useful life is really 5 to 6 years. So I really think it should be a capital item. And so it's included now in the warrant as such. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you're welcome. And for the Finance Committee, nothing capital related other than the fact that the chairman is really interested in what our votes for, so they can move ahead with their votes for the draft warrant. Unless anybody has anything else, we can jump right into, does anybody have anything else? Let me ask that question. All right. Does there, based on our last meeting, I went ahead and sent out those questions that we had to the department heads. Those questions included to the DPW whether the vehicle that is described as a pickup with a water meter reader and is whether or not a different vehicle could be used, or if it was multi-use. I forward that along. I'll just paraphrase what Dennis Smith had said. And the radio reading equipment meter reading computer will be transferred from the Ford Ranger to the new truck, blah, blah, blah. The new truck will be a multi-use vehicle as the existing Ford Ranger is. In addition, the water meter reading for biannual billing will be used for final readings of house sales, leak detection, data logging, water usage, water meter installations, water meter sampling, water samples, transportation, and on and on. So it's a multi-use vehicle. It's going to replace a 2008 Ford Ranger. Considering that will be used for a medium or full-size pickup, would be best suited. And that's about it. He provided some photographs along with it. Does anyone have any further questions on the pickup truck? All right, seeing none. It's from Bruce. And the question to the fire chief was, let's see, the question exactly was, is there currently a Whitman fire vehicle, excluding the ambulance, not being utilized? And what is the need to replace the current firefighting foam? So it's two different articles. The chief responded saying, no, all vehicles within the fleet are currently in service and utilized. We keep many vehicles inside the Armory building to keep them out of the weather and extend their life. So it's in regards to the vehicle question. And the foam question, the answer is there's a major environmental issue with many firefighting foams. Attached to link regarding PFAS. Recently, After doing research on our regional foam banks, it was discovered that the once safe foam, which we had several communities utilize, was identified in a lab test at DEP. So it sounds like they suspect that their foam is currently PFAS containing foam and want to replace that out. Let's see, there's one other question. I can't think what it was. We also had we also asked each department head to prioritize their articles. You can see how they did that there. I don't know. I guess that was all the questions. It was just multi questions on the pickup. All right. So in regards to I don't know. Do we need to get it? Does this committee feel the need to get into their prioritization of their articles? Anybody feel that that's necessary? I think that's more of an issue coming down to present. It's inclusion or exclusion of the draft warrant, or if necessary, questions in regards to at town meeting. You know, that question does come up sometimes. Fred, I'll go right into so other communication that we received was from the Whitman Regional School District Liaison. Fred, if you want to share those photographs.
Sure. Back up. I took a ride this afternoon over to the high school, to the areas in question. Can everyone see the pictures?
Yep.
Yep.
You know, this was originally constructed as a fire lane to be utilized, you know, on an emergency basis. There are some deliveries that get done there. There was a dumpster back there, and diesel fuel, you know, for the generator, you know, so you'd have a heavy truck. So it was supposed to be designed to handle those heavy trucks, but not on a daily basis, on a, you know, seldom basis. What's happened is people have been utilizing it to either park there, or now it's being utilized with the preschool as a pickup drop-off area right outside the doorways for parents to be able to pick up and drop off, so the children don't walk through the school. The roadway has been pooling and crumbling. It does not shed water properly, so the drainage is very, very bad. It's a very large hazard come winter time because the water just sits and freezes. So, you know, you have the excess of salt and de-icing chemicals that may have led, you know, to some of the deterioration being hastened as well. So I did take some pictures. This is around the bend. This is right, sort of right outside where the nursery preschool area is. Yeah, so as you can see on the side of the road, it's just crumbling and falling apart. Tried to do my best to take some good pictures. There's a nice overview, so as you can see where it's badly crumbled, and then you can see where you have right around the bend here where it's starting to fail, you know, worse than it was obviously 6 months ago. The fenced in area, that's your preschool, and the kids go in and out through the doorway right there. And it's again on the bend there. You can see a hunk of tar. Again, I guess I took more than one picture. There's the straightaway behind the high school, and as Justin pointed out, that vehicle that you see there is right outside the music room at the high school. So you can see where even right in the middle, over in this area here in front of the generator, where it's starting to deteriorate and fail. I thought I could get a closer up look and It's very difficult sometimes when you have a camera and you have poor eyesight and you don't know what you're taking a picture of, if it's in focus or not. That being said, so the generator would be up to the left here, but you can see how that's all cracked and crumbled. And that area is ready to go, so to speak. You can see a little patch job that they had to do. This is outside the community garden that they do. They have kids that grow food. And then the food is donated to the food pantry for fresh vegetables, etc. Nice little project that they do. The middle of the roadway, that's going around the, leading to around the corner. So the first pictures were taken from that aspect right there. So you can see even right here on the other side, you've got some potholes and cracking occurring. They just did a very poor job when they did it. As far as that went. That's all I have for pictures. And I believe Dave had sent links to, I uploaded them on Hightail so everyone could grab them and download them themselves. I'll try and answer any questions. I don't know, I'm the greatest at it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I just have a quick question for Fred. Fred, is the money that we're allocating is going to help deal with some of the pooling issues that we have going on, or are we going to be back here in X amount of time because that issue is going to be
The
there?
money that we're asking for is in addition to previously allocated funds. And from what I'm told, this takes care of the whole issue, period.
Okay, thank you.
I can't see everyone, so if anyone else has a question.
Josh has his hand up.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So, Fred, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've mentioned this before. So the road is used for primary traffic at this point, whereas it was designed initially for emergency access only. So my question is, with the money that's being allocated, are you basically ripping off the existing asphalt, putting new asphalt down? I mean, does the underlayment of the actual underneath the asphalt need to be reviewed and compacted to actually prevent this from happening again if in fact it's being used as a primary access road instead of just the emergency access?
The answer that I received was they are correcting the issue, period. Whatever needs to be done will be done with the funds that they'll have available. So if it needs the compacting, they're going to make it 110% right with the proper grading, drainage, and underlayment. That was what I was told by Ernie. I think that's what he told our committee way back when as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? I can't see everybody. All right.
Ryan, can you take me off a screen share?
Perfect.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. So I guess one other thing for communications is Lincoln's most recent email, which he spoke of earlier. Just for the record, I'll see if I can't read them into the record. Article yet to be determined, accept Chapter 90 road grant monies to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to accept such sums of money as may be distributed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the Chapter 90 Highway Program, so-called funds to be expended by the Department of Public Works in accordance with the guidelines and requirements of the Mass Highway Department, or take any action thereto. That's essentially the state money that we receive each year to go toward road improvements. And then Article 2, be determined police vehicle, to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from free cash and or available funds, or borrow the sum of $60,000 or another sum to purchase and equip one police vehicle, or take any other action thereto proposed by the police chief and town administrator. Any questions on those new ones that have just come through? For those that haven't received their looked at their email, I just stated them verbatim. So I can't. Let me see.
Yeah, Dave.
We've already received those.
Go ahead, Justin.
So I guess questions probably for Lincoln, and this is just traditionally when we get the chapter 90 article in there, there is a dollar value. Do you plan on amending that for town meeting? Or I think this probably says all it needs to say because the money can only be used for one thing, but.
I don't think we need a dollar amount. I know we traditionally had that. The fact is, so it's a reimbursement program, right? So we can spend what we can spend and then we get reimbursed, right? So
yeah,
personally, I don't think it needs a dollar amount, but if if folks really feel strongly, I'll get one in there. So.
All right. All right. And then, yeah, about the police vehicle, just kind of a curiosity for me. Last year, we purchased a hybrid police cruiser. Did you get any feedback from the chief on if they intend to do that again or how it's performing?
I'm not sure about the hybrid vehicle. I'll ask him about that. I'm not sure how it's performing. I don't know. I know, that certainly it is in general with the police vehicles. It's something I want to work with the chief about. I think I've certainly seen, I think possibly there's some efficiencies to be had with purchasing police vehicles, possibly going to a different contract. There's a Plymouth County contract, there's state contracts, there's other contracts. And that's something that I'm intending to work with the chief in general about to see if we can buy our vehicles more efficiently. But I'll ask him about the hybrid vehicle. Yeah.
Any other questions on that? Okay. So Lincoln, you just brought something up. Town departments have the ability to pick off there's different contracts available to the different municipal contracts available to municipalities for purchasing of capital items.
Correct. Well, so in particular vehicles. So we have to follow Chapter 30B, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30B, when we're purchasing supplies and services. And so what that means is either we can go out and run our own procurement for items that cost you more than $10,000 or more, and receive at least 3 bids. And then if it's there's different gradations for what how detailed the procurement process needs to be with higher dollar amounts, or we can purchase off a collective purchasing agreement, such as from the county, from the state. There are other collective purchasing agreements that we can purchase off of. So like I said, it's something I want to explore further with the chief to see if we can get what we need any more efficiently, any more cheaply. But to be clear, it's definitely going to be what we need. It's just a question of can we find it what we need cheaper? That's all.
Okay. All right. So that's really it for that. Unless anybody disagrees, we'll jump right into voting these draft warrant articles. Any exceptions to that? All right, seeing none, we'll go right ahead. So just to be specific to anybody watching, our votes will be specific to capital items. And all right, let's go.
I'm happy to put up to share the draft warrant if that's helpful.
Oh yeah, that'll be perfect.
Yeah, why don't we do that just a minute?
Mr. Chair, just one little thing before you start voting. Do you have like any indication of what free cash or what amount of funding we have available to us?
I do, absolutely. I was actually gonna say that at the end, but I'm glad you asked it now. So we have our free cash was certified this year at $1,058,526, and so the capital items before us that would be funded with free cash would total $981,269. So to be clear, and I do want to be clear, and I'm glad you brought it up, Justin. Thank you. To be clear, we are using the great majority of our free cash. If all of these articles are approved by town meeting, we would be using the great majority of our free cash to fund our capital program. Everything else that is capital would be funded from water sewer enterprise. The question that is still outstanding is what the school assessment will be, and therefore how much free cash will be needed for the operating budget. So this works with a reduced assessment, which it appears it may be on track to be. This capital plan does not work using free cash if those monies are needed for the school assessment. So I know that's not a very satisfactory answer, but it's where we are at this moment. Is that helpful? I don't know.
That's good. Thank you, Lincoln.
Yep, you're welcome.
So Justin Casanova, Davis, just to get you up to speed, and we talked about it a little bit during our last meeting, and the question does come up, and it has come up last week in regards to, is it within the responsibility of this committee to determine for their vote to be based on available funds? And I don't think we've ever come to a consensus on that. If someone wants to correct me, please do. But we've definitely had differing opinions at different values, I guess, different strengths of whether or not it's the responsibility of this committee to determine whether or not there's enough free cash or funding to, or do we just vote these articles based on need? That's just get to speed. Like I said, I don't think we've ever resolved that issue, or we've never come to a full consensus on that issue. But it's definitely, it's on my mind, being from the finance committee, that's kind of half my brain when I'm at this meeting. But also, I'm not sure, I don't think I've sent you a copy, and I'm not sure if you've seen the what's called the Madden report, which was done, I think 2 years ago now, where part of his recommendation was talking about capital spending for the town. And I don't have it in front of me, but I think at that time he mentioned that about $1 million is a reasonable amount for a town this big to be spending. And if I remember correctly, I think he actually said in that amount should probably increase from that point forward. I think a percentage. I think it was like maybe 3%. So the next year would be $1 million plus 3%. Next year would be $1 million plus 6%, and go on. Is anybody more familiar with that than me? Yeah. So we're right in line in regards to requests, being in there. The question is, whether or not that 981,000 is available.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just clarify sort of one other thing, which is, so the school assessment still is an open question, officially, right? So if there are, if more monies are needed, a significant amount of more monies are needed from free cash to fund the operating budget with that outstanding question, I want to be clear, that I don't necessarily have the answer to this at this moment, but I think there would need to be a consideration at that point of what capital items may come off the warrant for being recommended by me, right? It's up to town meeting, but there's a further consideration that needs to happen. It would, if the school assessment does not come down, there would not be sufficient free cash to fund our entire capital program as presented in the draft warrant. So then the question is, do we remove items from there? How much, if any, of our $651,093 in capital stabilization might we want to use to help fund some of this program? Or does, so what combination of, does the program be reduced, or what portion of capital stabilization would we need to use to fund it? It's a bit of an open question at this point because it's dependent on the school assessment, frankly. So.
Yeah, and Fred, I'll get right to you. And just to add to that is, even though we have the available funds, doesn't really mean that's not just that's not the only deciding factor that capital articles should be approved through town meeting.
Right.
I'll just say it that way. Go ahead, Fred.
Right.
Oh, two things. First, being a region, I know we have the right to place an article on the warrant for capital expense. Within the Mass General laws of the CMRs, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I know it's in there somewhere. That being said, I believe it's still up to the town as to the mechanism of how it's funded. So, if there was no free cash to fund that, it could be a capital exclusion, debt exclusion. I'm sure there are many other things that could be thought of. That obviously would not be an easy road to take, but still, quote unquote, an option. The school committee is scheduled to meet next Wednesday to continue our discussions on the budget and go from there. So I'm hoping, just on a personal level, that we can take care of business and put everything behind us, so to speak, at that point in time.
Okay. So anything else on that? All right, Lincoln, if you don't mind, go
Sure.
ahead and
Yep.
share your
Just
screen.
clear, can I,
Oh, go ahead, Ron. Yep.
how can we resolve this question? Because it full circles back to the same question almost every meeting. I struggle with the point of, do we focus on the operating budget and commit to that, and then everything that we have in the piggy bank left, we commit to capital, or what do we do? Or, it just seems irresponsible to make decisions if the funds aren't there. It's a false premise that it's difficult, and I have a tough time struggling with that. So I would like some clarity on this, and try to get to at least a solution of what we can do, what we can vote on to approve. Obviously everything is needed. Nobody would bring something to this committee if it wasn't needed. Everything that the school department needs, everything the fire department, everything the police department, the public works, everything's needed. But if we don't have the funds, we're wasting a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, just to address one part of your question is, towns, it's general practice within municipalities to fund their operating budget and to utilize free cash for warrant articles, capital warrant articles. So that's common practice. The question is, how do we resolve that? I always like to go back to the warrant article that established this committee and outlines our responsibilities. I don't know. You're right, Don. We talk about this all the time. I still grapple with it. I don't know. Does anybody have any suggestions on that? Go ahead, Fred.
I don't know that it's the purview of this committee to approve or not approve a project. I think the purview of the committee is to recommend or not recommend a project. And if you could read off what our charge is, and, perhaps we can say, without regard to available funding, which is the decision of the Board of Selectmen / town administrator from administration's point of view, the project itself is a viable project that's needed, and we do recommend it. And then it's, up for the selectmen to say, do they recommend it, and the funding source is X, Y, or Z. You know, maybe that's a way around it for this committee, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Well, I know the upcoming report that we'll have, you know, which Lincoln, maybe you could talk on this a little bit in regards to a 5-year plan like that. That will help solidify or help reduce some of the questions that we you know, some of the anxiety that we have in regards to funding, because it will prioritize certain things that come across this committee for vote, and then, you know, make our decision a little bit better. But you know, like I don't know, Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean, my view primarily of a 5-year capital plan is primarily to identify needs and know about them in a timely fashion, and to have those needs you know, all in one basket and prioritized against each other, and to know, you know, farther out when we will need to replace or repair something. I think it can help to answer the question about how much funds are available to fund the program that we want to fund. But especially in this environment, projecting out 5 years, what will be available, especially in the environment of COVID, of the federal government, and what funds may or may not be available there. You know, and frankly, in the environment of the school district and not knowing precisely what an operating request may be from them 3 years from now, or even next year, per se, no one's fault per se. I think it's harder to answer that question. It can help, but I think it's hard to definitively answer it. Does that help answer your question? I mean, there's uncertainty, and the plan can help address that uncertainty, but it's not going to completely answer this uncertainty.
The one thing I have with this is some of the projects or capital expenditures, and I'm just going to use a basic term, it's some things could be low-hanging fruit that we probably could fund and just get it off the table. We might, you know, we might be looking at bigger projects that we can't fund and spend a lot of time with them. That's the hurdle that I have with, we just don't have a budget to work with to approve capital projects. You know, it's just a little bit backwards from what I'm always have done in the past in the corporate world, where you basically you put together the capital plan, which creates the budget. Here we have a budget that we have to work with, and then we're going to back in the capital plan to it. Or maybe I'm just misreading our role. I don't know.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Justin, I think you, Don, I think you perfectly pinpointed the big issue between public and private sector. I think you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, Lincoln identified, you know, a CIP, a capital improvement plan. It's giving you like that long-term vision of what's coming down the pipeline. I think in an ideal world, sort of meshing with what Don said, you would have like a percentage of your revenue be allocated to capital. So you sort of understand what in the future generally you're going to have. Obviously, we're not in that environment and capable of do that now, but in an ideal world, you know what your pot of fund generally is and what you're working with. And that sort of guides you in your capital plan. Because obviously every year, just like Lincoln said, is volatile. Maybe one year you may have more revenue than another. When you have extra bandwidth, you can do more projects. If you have less, then that's what I envision this committee would do. Is let's say we only have $500,000 and we have $900,000 worth of projects. Then my vision of this committee was like, we recommend these projects as a priority. So that's the ideal world, but obviously we're not there. And just for full disclosure of the committee, like if we're just going to vote on these articles, I mean, all of our department heads are professionals and we trust them. So they submitted these articles for a reason. So me personally, I support a good majority of them. I have a question about one, but we're just sort of rubber stamping, just saying yes, sort of. That's what the committee is doing in the current framework, how I see it. So.
Okay. Anybody else?
I guess I'll just quickly add in that this committee is kind of at the beginning of the process. We're vetting. We have so much free cash that we would normally set aside for capital and so many capital projects. If the recommendations from the finance committee are to use some of that free cash to supplement the operating budget, things would shift and we would probably be asked to revisit some of our recommendations as the finance committee's recommendations use some of those capital funds for other purposes. And then the finance committee would then, that would be presented to town meeting for the final say. So because we're operating in the beginning of the process, I would just try and simplify it and say we've got so many capital projects and so much free cash that we would want to allocate toward capital and just work from there.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, as far as answering Don's question, because it's an excellent one, right? First, you want to look at revenue before you look at expenditures, right? And I think a lot of that is answered with the exception, frankly, and it's nothing against Fred or the schools or anything, but most of it is answered with the exception of the schools, right? So we do have that answer with the exception of this admittedly one very large piece that's outstanding, but most of it is answered, if that's helpful,
And we tried last night.
You did excellent, yes.
Josh, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I believe we have a capital stabilization account too. Is that correct, Lincoln?
Yes, like I said earlier, so there's $651,093.08 in there. So as I said earlier, that is, we have, I think, part of the conversation, certainly from my perspective, free cash needs to be looked at first, but dependent on what happens with the school budget, I think that's part of the conversation later.
Yeah, and I don't recall or not, but in the John Madden report, whether or not there was any recommendation on a certain percentage, like I think David mentioned, as far as the revenues coming in, was there a certain percentage that he had recommended putting over into capital stabilization I know we were talking about, I think up to $1 million in expending every year, but from an inflow side coming in, did he, I don't recall if he had mentioned a certain percentage of.
Well, I'd love to put a lot into capital stabilization, but
Sure.
But that's a lot is not going to be possible this year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, just something I just wanted to make everyone aware that obviously there's a
Yeah.
capital stabilization account as well as the free cash. So there's definitely multiple sources, if you will. And I think we had grappled about this before as far as to, making recommendations on where to fund articles from, which I don't feel is our sort of realm, if you will.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Could you read our charge again?
Oh, boy. All right. As it currently reads, the town voted in the majority to dissolve the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee created by the vote of Article 15 of October 16, 1996 special town meeting, and in its place authorized the Board of Selectmen to establish a permanent committee to be known as the Buildings, Facilities, and Capital Expenditures Committee, hereinafter the committee. The committee shall consist of 9 members. Can I skip over that part?
Yeah.
Thank you. So that establishes the membership. The committee shall prepare an annual report identifying the town's anticipated capital needs for the next 5 years, prioritized by year. The report shall be submitted to the Board of Selectmen in January of each fiscal year for inclusion in the town's annual report. The committee should be responsible for evaluating capital needs of the town, evaluating town facilities with the assistance of the town's facilities manager, and presenting projects and funding requests for town meeting. Let me repeat that. Committee shall be responsible for evaluating capital needs of the town, evaluating town facilities with the assistance of the town's facilities manager, and presenting projects and funding requests for the town meeting. The committee shall directly or through the facilities manager or building subcommittee manage capital projects of the town. In addition, the committee shall review requests for capital purchase, which shall be defined as purchases of vehicles and equipment, including technology, equipment, and software costing $10,000 or more, or having a useful life of 5 years. Purchases in the aggregate exceeding 10 grand, have the life expectancy of greater than 5 years shall be considered capital purchases. Requests for capital spending shall be submitted to the committee in October 1st of each fiscal year, and the committee shall evaluate and prioritize requests in order to prepare a capital budget and present requests for funding to town meeting. No appropriation greater than $10,000 for capital purchases or improvements shall be considered for funding at town meeting unless Such request has been submitted and reviewed by the committee, except where the need for the capital expenditure was unanticipated in time to be submitted for review prior to finalizing the town meeting warrant. And the Board of Selectmen votes to include the request apart from the annual capital budget defined above. And in preparing for annual appropriation, the committee shall be available to meet, blah, blah, blah. The committee shall meet with the finance committee, blah, blah, blah. So, go ahead, Fred.
So based on what you said, I would take our charge to be that we're to review projects and present them for funding, not to determine what a funding source is, or perhaps to even give consideration of funding availability.
Yeah,
The charge of this committee is to basically recommend or not recommend the project and its viability. That's what I take out of that charge. I don't know if anyone feels different.
yeah. So I think you're using the sentence here. The committee shall prepare an annual report identifying the town's anticipated capital needs for the next 5 years, prioritizing the year. The report shall be submitted to the Board of Selectmen in January of each fiscal year for inclusion. Oh, no, sorry.
Now, further down, that
Yeah.
we're to review
The committee shall be
and
responsible
present for funding.
Yeah, the committee shall be responsible for evaluating capital needs of the town, evaluating town facilities with the assistance of the town's facility manager, and presenting projects and funding requests for town meeting. There's an and in there. The committees shall directly or through the facilities manager or building subcommittee manage capital projects for the town. So, yeah. So I, anybody else have an alternate view of what Fred said? All right. Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that. There is new language. Well, let's deal with that later. So currently, that's what our responsibilities read as of current date. Yeah, for me, it doesn't resolve the issue, Donna. I'm kind of on the same page as you, but that's not going to preclude me from making any votes tonight. All right. Anybody else on that question? As we, I think we stated early on in this season that we were going to move closer toward achieving the terms in our that are outlined in our responsibilities outlined in the warrant article, because they haven't been done in the past. I think as we get past this town meeting and work towards those goals, I think this will be less of a question than it has been this year. I hope. Well, I guess we'll have to see. But it may alleviate some issues.
It may get tighter also after we spend the free cash.
What do you mean?
Well, going forward next year, these same questions, they might get a little bit more difficult.
Depends on how much free cash we certify next year.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we needed to clarify or write language and have it presented at town meeting for next year, to further define our role, I would think that would be reasonable if needed.
Well, there's an article out there. It's not necessarily considered a capital article, but there is a article out there which changes the language of our responsibilities a bit. And I'm hoping to get into it tonight and see how the committee, whether the committee supports or doesn't support it, or makes any, or has any recommendations for changes.
You want to do that right now?
Well, I'd like to leave that at the end. So I think I think we're gonna have a long discussion on that one, similar to the one that we're having now. That is Article
27.
27. Thank you. All right. So all right. Let me put it this way. So does this issue that we've discussed Does anyone feel that they would not be able to make a vote on any capital articles based on the issue at hand? I don't know how to define the issue, but the issue that we've been discussing, does anyone feel that they won't be able to make a vote? Oh, all right. So we'll save that to the end, and then we'll get right into it. All right, Lincoln, you can go ahead and share your screen. All right, Article P2.
So P2, as we discussed earlier with the committee, that $10,244 is the town's match, would represent the town's match of 25% towards a FEMA grant for a new generator at the fire station. I'm going to, just so the committee knows, I'm going to aggressively pursue CARES Act funding in an attempt to cover that. I don't know if it will be covered or not, but if I have a clear indication by the time of town meeting that it would be covered, I would recommend removal of that. If not, part of the conversation, frankly, is whether or not regarding CARES Act is whether or not it is appropriated. So stay tuned, I suppose, is the answer on that. But at this moment, it is on the town meeting warrant.
Okay. And does the other item on there without a dollar value?
That is an operating expense.
Operating expense. Okay. All right. So I can't see everyone, so please speak up. I'll entertain a motion for Article P2.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Small, and what your motion is?
Motion is to approve the 10,000, or recommend the $10,244 appropriation from free cash toward the town share of the generator.
Okay. A second,
Second,
Justin Evans.
Justin, yeah, Evans.
Yeah. All right. So roll call vote. Justin Evans,
Yes.
Dave Cadero, yes. Fred Small.
Yes.
Oh boy. Lincoln Heineman,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Bob Curran,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Smith,
Davis, yes.
Davis. Do I keep calling you Smith? I apologize.
That's fine.
I think I did that last meeting too. I went to school with a guy named Casanova Smith.
Interesting.
One more. Did I miss someone?
Yep.
John
go.
Essen.
Who was it?
Don.
Don, go ahead. And your vote is yes?
Yes. Yep.
So that's unanimous. 9-0-0. Okay, Article P3. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from available water and sewer retained earnings and transfer an additional $3,500 to annual town meeting Article 30 of the May 6 and 7, 2013 town meeting to fund the completion of Hogue Memorial Drive water main replacement project or take any action relative thereto proposed by Public Works Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Fred Small motions.
The additional 35,000.
Yep.
Second.
Seconded by Bob. Roll call vote. Fred?
Yes. I don't know if you want discussion.
Oh, sorry. Yes, discussion.
Just, this is the balance of the money that the DPW had said, the water commissioner, the water department had said that they will want to swap the money. So there'll be an equal sum or less 15,000, I think, that will be coming back toward water and sewer retained from another project as well. So it's pretty much a zero impact, if I recall correctly.
That's my understanding. Lincoln, is that your understanding as well?
It is.
Okay, all right. Any further questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion was made and seconded. That was discussion.
Yep, sorry. So any further discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote. Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
David, yes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0. Unanimous. P4, 4,
I believe it's actually
A5,
5. So it's Article 5, not P5, Article
Yep.
5.
A5. To see if the town will vote to appropriate, Lincoln, do you have that exact figure?
Just a moment.
And Howie at one point.
$14,471,950.
All right, to see if the town will vote to appropriate 14 million. Sorry.
471,950.
Okay. To pay for the cost sewer main replacement from Auburn Street Pump Station to gravity sewer terminus manhole located in the city of Rockland, including payment of all costs incidental relative thereto, and that to meet the appropriation of the treasurer. With the approval of Board of Selectmen is authorized to borrow said amount pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Section 7, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town. Therefore, that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to enter into any and all agreements with other municipalities, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that are necessary or convenient to complete this project. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by the vote in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount, or any or take any other action relative thereto. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Small make that motion.
Fred Small,
Second.
Josh McNeil. Discussion?
Quick question, should it say up to the amount? And I'm willing to amend. I'll ask Lincoln that. Are they putting money out of retained earnings?
Yeah, so hopefully, yes. I spoke with Chairman Cleary from the DPW Commission earlier this week, and I believe that that they will have some desire to use some retained earnings towards this project. And I'm also going to the commission meeting this coming Tuesday to further discuss with them and hopefully convince them of such. So this is to be clear. So it could certainly say, well, to be clear, so we're appropriating the amount for the project. If it and then authorizing borrowing. So the motion, not the article itself, but the motion will specify the funding sources. And hopefully, the motion is approved by the DPW commissioners, and the Board of Selectmen as necessary will include a significant, a healthy bit of retained earnings, and then the rest will be borrowed. However, we won't, that is the cost of the project, 14.471 million with contingency. So hopefully the borrowing amount at the end of the project for the long-term borrowing may well be less, because not only would a significant portion of retained earnings be used towards it, but also the actual cost of the project may well and hopefully might be less than the projected cost of the project. So I'd suggest that the article should read to appropriate that amount, but to be clear, if the final project cost is less, it won't be spent. Does that make sense?
Yep, yep. I just want to clarify, that's all.
Yep.
Any further discussion on that? Please speak up because I can't see everyone if they have any questions. All right, seeing none, we'll go for a roll call vote. Aaron,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
David, yes. Josh,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Bob Curran,
Yes.
Fred Small.
Yes.
All right, unanimous, 9-0.
Dave, you keep leaving me out.
Don, I'm sorry, Don.
That's the second time.
Apologize.
Yes.
All right, now it's unanimous.
Dave, if you're not full screen, you can open up the participants tab and just read down the list.
I gotta write that down now. Sorry, not my best day today. All right, so Article 6, which is the DPW building. Correspondence from, well, I guess, I think we're gonna pass it. Well, I guess we need a motion, but somewhere in my correspondence from Bruce, I think it was Bruce. Yeah, it is our opinion, although, where is it? It was Dennis. Somewhere in this correspondence that I can't find it real quick, but saying that this article would likely be pulled from DPW due to the issue of not having a current, the feasibility study not being available prior to town meeting. Who gave me that information? That was from Dennis. Article 6 will most likely be withdrawn from annual town meeting warrant because despite the intention of the all town meeting, the DPW barn feasibility study to be completed to present, a DPW concept and cost is not ready and will be presented at the next town meeting when it is. So I think we'll pass right over that one unless we have any objection. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Article 7. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $29,000 to purchase an equivalent medium-sized pickup truck and purchase and install water meter radio reading equipment in said truck or take any other action thereto. That was discussed earlier. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll make that motion, but then we can turn to discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve as is, Fred? Is that the-
Well, and I would have been amending. I thought that they got back to us and said they wanted to do it out of water and sewer retained.
Again, so that it will be out of water and sewer retained earnings, and that will be in the motion.
Okay, so the motion would read, see if the town will vote to
Yeah, right.
appropriate
Move-
sum of money, 29,000 funded by water and sewer retained earnings.
Correct.
To purchase and equip a medium-sized pickup truck and purchase and install water meter radio reading equipment in said truck or take any other action relative thereto. Would that be proper, Lincoln?
Correct.
That's my motion.
Second.
Second from Josh. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote. Justin Evans,
Yes.
Bob Curran,
Yes.
Fred Small,
Yes.
Don Essen,
Yes.
Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
David, yes. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous, 9-0-0. That was Article 7. Article 8. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from available funds the sum of money, $29,528 to replace broken and worn parts at the town park playground, or take any other action relative thereto.
Small, make that motion.
Motion, second?
Second, Justin Evans.
By Justin Evans, all right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Lincoln,
Yes.
David, yes. Josh,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Bob Curran,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Aaron.
Yes.
Unanimous, 9-0-0. Article 9. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $64,000 to purchase and equip with a plow, a four-wheel drive, one-ton truck, or take any action relative thereto, proposed by Public Works Commission. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion, but I did want to ask, is this another one that they were gonna pay out of water and sewer retained? I'm trying to remember.
No, so that this would be envisioned out of free cash.
Okay,
Are you still making the motion?
I'm still making the motion, yeah,
Okay, as is.
as is.
Second,
Second.
Josh McNeil. Roll call vote. Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
David, yes. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Yes.
Justin Evans.
Yes.
Yes, 9-0-0.
So one question, Dave, do we have to change that wording in there to approve that or no? As far as this one is raise and appropriate right now and it's,
Yeah, so then the motion can identify the source of funds, and the source of funds would be identified as free cash.
okay,
So it would be appropriating from free cash.
very good.
All right, Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $156,286 to purchase and equip a 39,000-pound GVW dump truck with snowplow or take any action relative thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Mr. Small, second.
Second.
Bob Curran.
Yes.
Any additional questions? Again, please speak up because I can't see everybody. I have one question. Was there any consideration in regards to utilizing water and sewer retained earnings for all or portion of this truck?
I don't think it would be a hard sell to say that any of this would be appropriate from there. It's used, it's used for road work and plowing. So I think it would be a hard sell to say that we could use enterprise funds for any portion of it.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll go for a roll call vote. Let's start with Bob.
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
David, yes. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Justin Evans.
Yes.
All right, that's unanimous, 9-0-0. For Article 10. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $46,000 to purchase an 18,000-pound Stericom or compatible column truck lift system or take any other action relative thereto. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second,
Second.
was that Casanova Davis?
That was Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Lincoln? Questions? All right, seeing none, take a roll call vote. We'll start with Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
David, yes, Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
unanimous, 900.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sorry if I'm out of order. Article 9. Just, I was able to pull up some of the emails that you had sent.
Yep. And
a response back from the DPW was that Article 9, the one-ton dump truck. This article should read that $25,000 will be paid out of existing cemetery account funds.
Oh.
Would you accept a motion to amend or a motion to reconsider that vote or rescind that vote so that we could add that language?
Yeah, so just to get everybody up to speed, that email was from Bruce Martin, and his request was that this article should read Article 9. Oh, yeah.
I can read it verbatim. The article should read the
25,000 to be paid out of existing cemetery account funds.
Yeah.
However, the question is 64,000 on Article 9.
39,000 from available.
Oh, so it's okay, gotcha. So two
Yeah.
funding sources. Yeah. So Fred, everybody's in the majority, so I'm willing to go
Motion
back.
to rescind our vote on Article 9.
So your motion is to rescind the vote.
Rescind it and then to remote. My intention is to remotion it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we have a motion to rescind and revote for Article 9. Do I have a second?
Second, good catch. Thank you, Fred.
Lincoln. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we need to take a roll call vote. Don,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
David, yes, Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
All right. So the motion is now rescinded. Fred, would you like to make another?
New motion to read to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $39,000 to purchase and equip a plow with a four-wheel drive 1-ton truck with a plow and utilize $25,000 in addition from the how do they say, existing cemetery account funds, or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Lincoln. All right, roll call vote. Aaron,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Dave Calero, yes. Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Bob Curran,
Yes.
Fred Small,
Yes.
and Donna.
Yes.
All right, so that's back to unanimous. And we were on Article 12. See if the town will appropriate a sum of money for the purpose of resurfacing and or installing surface treatments, engineering services, granite purchases, and line painting various town streets, or take any action relative thereto. The purpose of the sum of money is because we're not, based on town meeting, it's not clear if or what available money would be available for this article.
So after the drafting of this warrant, I had some clarification in speaking with Superintendent Martin, and their intended request was $100,000.
Okay,
that's-
do you anticipate that figure being on the warrant?
Yes, that would be my intention of what to include in the next draft warrant. It's obviously up to the Board of Selectmen as to what the final number is, but that is the number that will be included on the next draft warrant.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
And is your motion to include?
To see if the town will appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of resurfacing and/or installing surface treatments, engineering services, granite purchases, and line painting various town streets, or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay. So the motion, second,
Second.
Josh McNeil. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have one question. Is there a scope that goes along with this as far as the streets or what actually are, how much linear feet or miles or whatever that they're doing?
So Bruce has a list of needs and plans about, if I had this much money, I would be doing this and this and this, and a priority list. And I'll ask him to get that to you, Don.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, and this is exactly what a 5-year capital plan should run to. I mean, I don't know how the frequency that that every street needs to be repaved, or I'm assuming it's directed traffic, or use, but this is a perfect 5-year capital plan type of project that we should always be funding whatever Bruce thinks the dollars should be each and every year.
Yeah, and so to be clear, in order to do what we'd love to do, we can't afford. So, I mean, we can't afford it. We have Chapter 90 monies. This is a supplemental appropriation that we definitely should do and want to do. But, it's a problem. Chapter 90 funds are insufficient from the state to do what we need to do, but this is an acknowledgement that we want to do something more. So.
Yeah, and I know Bruce has mentioned in the past, not only is Chapter 90's money insufficient, but even the appropriation of additional monies of 100,000 is still insufficient. But it helped, that extra 100,000 kind of gets them into a higher tier project, meaning that it's hard to manage the smaller projects. So with the addition, because they're not really there, but most paving and street repairs requires additional funds that they have that are allocated each year. And this $100,000 gets them into that available zone, I guess.
Does the engineering services need to be completed or performed each year? Or is it just a detail that they need to repave and follow that detail?
It depends on what the project is. So if it's less complex, no, we're not spending a lot of money on engineering, but sometimes some more engineering needs to be done, right?
Okay.
Depends on what's on the list that year.
I mean, I think that's one of the most critical things is roads, schools, services, that we're all looking for the town government to manage for us.
Yes, right, and that sentiment comes up at every town meeting. So someone mentions that. All right. Any other further questions or discussions on that?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I was going to basically say the same thing. Essentially, I think these articles get caught in town meeting every year in the fact that a lot of residents are looking for their streets to get repaired, and they ask, specific questions on what streets are covered in these articles. And that's where it gets down to the fact that where's the priority, where's the list? And, unfortunately, there is really no defined list, if you will, and there's not enough money to take care of everything all at once, but some type of a master plan would be nice to see.
So I know Bruce has a list. Bruce has a list of his priorities. each year, and certainly, and so we can get that, and we will.
In the
But
past, he has been very hesitant to share that publicly
Yes.
at the risk of putting neighbors against each other on
Yep.
whose street gets paved when. So
Yeah.
just to caution you, Lincoln, before asking to distribute that.
yeah,
Mr. Chair,
Don asked for it. I'm going to get it to Don, but yeah, if someone else doesn't care, then yeah.
Go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Don, and I can understand just the hesitance of sharing that list. I'd be interested in seeing as well, but I think that's the good thing about having sort of a long-term plan. So if people see, well, this is the pot of funding we have available, but every year we're gonna allocate what we can, 100,000, and this is the next street, and this is next priority. So I think that's the way you sort of navigate that, although people will complain about their streets all the time. So
Mr.
yeah,
Chair,
I would like to see that list.
Yeah, me too. Fred, go ahead.
I know in a conversation a couple of years ago with Bruce about the list and the fact that we've got some sinkholes and things developing on my street. And not did I get the words out of my mouth, and he was down here, to look at it. And as he said, yeah, I can see what you're saying, but there's a lot worse streets in town. If it gets worse, you'll bump up in the priority. So even though there's a list, we always have to know it's a living document, and you may lose your place in line, so to speak. Type of thing.
Okay.
Maybe even not so much a list, but I mean, a list would be nice, but even a lineal footage of what he can accomplish with 100,000. And so, I mean, I don't even know how many, I guess, miles of roadway we have that we're responsible for, or, just what percentage of all of our roads are we doing, or, do we look at the side roads differently than we look at the Route 27 or Route 14 or Route 18? Do we look at all the roads differently? Just, I guess, a quick little breakdown of how he kind of breaks it or looks at things would be helpful.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, a couple quick things. So the amount of linear feet each year is definitely dependent on which streets we're doing, right? So if we're doing a cul-de-sac, that's a lot cheaper than Route 27, right? And how many intersections are there? Is it granite curbing? Is it not granite curbing, et cetera? But we can definitely get the list and what the priorities are each year. And just so this committee knows, so there are, the state is responsible and owns Route 18. But not routes, while Route 27 and 14, routes 27 and 14 are numbered by the state, they are not maintained by the state. So the town is responsible for those, but thankfully not Route 18. Just FYI.
Why is that? If they're both state roads?
Because that's what the Mass Department of Transportation says.
Okay.
There really isn't any other reason.
Okay.
I know it'd be great if there was a better answer or reason, but there is no other reason. I'd love nothing more than for the state to take over the maintenance of routes 27 and 14, and for that matter, any other number of roads in town. But there's a distinction between state-owned roads that they're responsible for and state-numbered roads that they're not.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussions on that? So we have a motion and a second. So roll call vote. Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh McDowell,
Yes.
Dave Cadaro, yes. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don.
Yes.
All right, unanimous. Article 13. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 for the purpose of repairing, replacing, or installing sidewalks on various town streets, or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Mr. Small, the second.
A second, Justin Evans.
Justin Evans. I just want to confirm. No further communications on this one. Okay. All right, so we have a second. Any discussion on this one?
I guess just a quick, is there any reason why we couldn't combine this and the previous article as 150,000 toward road and sidewalk repairs?
There's no reason we can't. The Bruce wanted to show that both needs were being addressed, or at least partially addressed, right? Not addressed to the extent that we'd like, but that there's, that there's a commitment to funding both. And I agree with him in that, in that sense, but there's no other reason it could be one. There's no.
Just didn't want to potentially pigeonhole him into $101,000 of street where, although chapter 90 money can make up. Yeah.
Chapter 90 money could make it up, or if he needed to just finish a project, he could, and he had a little bit of operating budget leeway, he could do that,
If I remember correctly, I think it either was discussed here or during a DPW commissioners meeting that there's this specific sidewalks they intend to repair with this money. I think they have targeted sidewalks that they have in mind for this particular article. Whether or not that makes a difference. All right. Did we have a motion on this one?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Okay.
And second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, let's take a roll call vote. List. Aaron?
Yes.
Lincoln?
yes.
David, yes. Josh McNeil?
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis?
Yes.
Justin Evans?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. Article 14, Armory Building Roof. To see if the town will vote and raise and appropriate $35,000 to repair the Armory Building roof or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the fire chief.
I'll make that motion.
Motion. Second.
Second.
Lincoln. Any further discussion?
If I could just mention, like the generator, at the fire department, this is something that I intend to aggressively pursue our remaining CARES Act monies for. I don't know if we'll be successful, but obviously if we are, these monies will not be spent if they're approved by town meeting.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Well, let me just, can I ask one thing?
Don, go ahead.
If we don't get the CARES Act, did I hear you right, Lincoln, that we'd probably not move forward with the Armory building roof?
It needs to be done. So it needs to be done. So no, if we did not get the CARES Act monies and this was approved by town meeting, I'd still want to proceed with the project.
Okay, that's my feeling too. Okay.
And for what it's worth, if anybody's ever not been in the Armory building, I welcome you to come see it. The roof isn't anything special, but the ceiling inside is very special. It's a beautiful wooden ceiling, and I've never seen any construction quite like it. So I'd be happy to show folks around there. I was, first time I saw it, I was duly impressed. So.
Well, let's get a new roof on it quick then.
Exactly.
Okay, any further discussions on that? All right, seeing none, roll call vote. Bob?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Lincoln?
Yes.
David, yes. Josh McNeil?
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis?
Yes.
Justin Evans?
Yes.
Unanimous. Okay, Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $60,000 to purchase a replacement of a 2015 fire department vehicle or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Who was that?
Oh, second, Justin.
Justin Evans. Any further discussion?
Just briefly, I know there was a question last week about what will be happening with the old vehicle, and the answer is that it will be used somewhere else in town. And Bob hasn't heard this yet, but likely to replace the facilities manager's vehicle, which is in need of replacement. So
That's
there you go,
great.
Bob. Bob hasn't heard it yet, but hey, now's as good a time as any.
Dibs on
Thank you.
Bob's old vehicle for the school.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah,
Dibs on Bob's old one for the schools if it still runs.
Sure.
I believe, and this could be off topic, that Bob's vehicle is also used for the town of Hanson currently, and they would be hiring a new building commissioner in the future. So would be worth consideration. Would be paid a stipend for the use of that vehicle for a number of years
From Hanson.
from
Yeah,
Hanson.
are you asking the question of whether or not we are?
Yeah. So currently that vehicle is used for both towns.
Right, and they do contribute to the gas use, but nothing else.
Oh, okay.
I think they put some money towards insurance as well, but for the most part, it's just fuel.
Just something to consider if we were going to hand that vehicle somewhere.
Well, my position in Hanson is ending the end of this month.
Oh.
So that's moot now, so.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Roll call vote. Bob, we'll start with you. Bob?
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
David, yes. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Fred.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous, 900. Article 16. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $10,000 to remove and replace the fire department's firefighting foam or take any other action relative thereto.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
Bob Curran.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Aaron,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
David, yes. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Bob Curran,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Don.
Yes.
900. Unanimous. Article 17. To see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from free cash and or available funds or borrow a sum of $71,208 to replace the telephone system at Duval, Conley, and Whitman Middle Schools, or take any action thereto. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second.
Yeah, Dave, quickly, sorry.
Yep.
So I didn't mention this in the beginning, but there's still some work being done.
Hold on, Josh. We're kind of out of order a little bit. Either we're in motion.
So you need a
I'll
second.
second the motion.
Discussion.
Yeah, I need a second.
Second the motion.
Lincoln seconds. All right, go ahead, Josh.
Sorry, no, so I just wanted to update the committee on the status. I know we want to put these through and certainly looking at the work that's been done. Steve Burke on the school side has been diligently working with the vendors to try and come to grasp on what solution and certainly the cost figure to find out, what the overall cost is going to be based on what was presented initially. The latest quotes that came back included annual maintenance for the, in the inclusive cost of the actual project, which the annual maintenance itself should be covered under the tech expense line for their annual costs associated with the equipment. So I think that's, looking at the last quote could be a savings of $40,000 off the actual total cost of the project. So I don't know, we want to just move forward and approve these as is with the numbers associated with them, or I know that certainly the projects need to be done. But again, I'll leave it to the committee's opinion on how to move forward with these 2 or 3 articles, depending on, I think there's 2 articles there.
Mr. Chair.
So yeah, go ahead, Fred.
So from what my understanding is, we can recommend the article with the knowledge that the worst thing that could happen is that the price goes down.
Is that your understanding, Josh? Essentially, that the most recent date cost estimates shows that the cost may likely go down.
Possibly, yes. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of variables involved, unfortunately, in the last minute here, trying to, put the puzzle together, with various different, options and solutions. And, while I don't see the costs necessarily increasing, it looks like there could be a little less based on, obviously sending it out to bid. It's going to come in, less than I think what we're seeing as far as the quotes that are coming in. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit less money.
Okay.
Josh, can I ask a little bit of a clarifying question? When you say that there's $40,000 as part of this, approximately $40,000, that would be the annual maintenance operating as opposed to the capital expenses, are you saying just in Article 17 or across Article 17 and 18?
Yeah, no, basically I'm saying across the board for the total cost of the overall project, looking at the last quote that came in, that was basically sent over yesterday, the approximate cost on the annual maintenance that is included with the overall cost of the project is $40,080, which again, annual maintenance is typically paid out of a generalized expense account, not would be considered a capital item, during a project purchase.
And that would be subject to a 60-40, for lack of the fractions split.
Correct.
For, their portion, which would be Indian Head and Hanson Middle. And then our portions being our elementaries plus the middle, and then the high school. So we'll probably just go right into the operating budget and end up being a 60-40 split, period.
Yeah, I just don't know if, like I said to Steve, back and forth on emails the last couple of days, I don't know if they have that money already encumbered basically in their expense line for the annual maintenance, because I'm not sure, based on the fact that they couldn't get coverage on their existing equipment. I don't know what they were paying previous when they were able to get coverage compared to what the cost would be once they put this system in. But initially, what we're being told is that the initial system that was presented does have significantly higher long-term costs associated with maintaining it. So the alternate system that was recently presented, it probably may come out to around the same initial cost factor, pending the overall end up design. But I think the long-term costs are going to be a bit less, if you will. So,
and that's what the district's going to have to worry about that within their operating, and either make appropriate cuts or be able to expand their budget, or work within the parameters of what the towns can do. But that's an ongoing expense. That's it's not a capital expense to purchase everything. That's capital. Would you agree with that, Lincoln?
Yeah, I mean, respectfully from what Josh is saying is, if the portion of these expenses that is operating and not capital is $40,000, then I'd suggest that perhaps, Fred's not going to like this, but perhaps they be reduced by our portion 0.59, 60%, 59.96%. And perhaps it might be in order that it be $23,984 cheaper. However, it's just a thought.
yeah, sorry, this all has to go out to bid anyway. So at the end of the day, I guess, what we're looking at, the actual quote itself, I think the latest quote came out to $280,822.53. And 40,000 of that is basically annual support for 3 years. So again, that's like the first year was 13,360. So that's roughly what your annual is going to be basically. And then, the 2 additional years came out to 26,720 for a total of 40,080. So, I mean, you're looking basically at, let's say, 240,000 total for a total project cost based on this last quote. But again, there's still some variables that are being worked out too.
So,
Justin, do you have a question?
Yeah, and I had more of a comment. This is for both the articles, and I understand I'm coming late to the process, so I would have asked some other questions and I appreciate Steve and his team forwarding all the documents. I was reading through it, and I noted that one, it said the network infrastructure was the priority. And that's probably another discussion. And then I hear Josh say that this is definitely a need, and once again, Josh is professional, so I'm going to defer to him and that team. I would say that I feel uncomfortable voting whatever amount it may be, because there are variables changing, voting like $200,000 on a project that even in this recommendation documents that they sent, just going to say it's still going to remain legacy. It's still going to be outdated. It's not going to have support. It's going to be limited. You know, for me, reading through that solution, you know, this allocation of funds, we could, you know, put it towards the network infrastructure, which they outlined, the consultant they got is the priority. And that leads to cybersecurity and so much more. So I just want to, I know I'm coming late to the process and we can't have the team here. I'm just interested why we didn't pursue that one. And yeah, 200 grand for something that's gonna be legacy and outdated. Well, how long are we gonna keep with this? When's the next time we're gonna have to update this, et cetera? So just wanted to give that comment.
Josh could probably answer it better than myself, but my understanding is this is a hybrid, and it's going to be able to adapt to the new network and new infrastructure when that gets done. Right now, we're at a point where it's a critical juncture that it's just waiting for it to fail.
Yeah.
We can't get parts for telephones even, I guess. But Josh, I'll let you can.
Well, Fred, I read it and I agree with you, and I know why they did it, because they say the upfront cost is lower. But in the document, page 12, as it lists the disadvantages, because it is the hybrid one, it says the majority of the voice system would still remain legacy and outdated. Support for new features is very limited. Solution does not offer an end-to-end voice over IP, limiting the ability to manage endpoint devices. It's not even the one that they suggest going with. They suggest in this document looking at the network infrastructure first. And then if we were to skip over that, because I know that's another discussion, this isn't even the main option they suggest in the documents they sent over. So I just feel uncomfortable voting that amount. I'm worried about the long-term use of that and when we're gonna, I would just see other priorities, but obviously I'm not the expert. I would ask those questions, so I don't feel comfortable voting for that amount of money without asking those questions and hearing, you know, from the team and understanding the reasoning. But obviously I'm gonna defer to Josh, because Josh has been on this project longer than I have, but read the document. And
I like to just kind of dumb it down for myself. So the question, the issue is that you have both a brains and an infrastructure that are outdated. The approach is whether to fix the brains or fix the infrastructure first. That's the concern. And tell me if I'm wrong, Justin, but I think what you're saying is that the report is saying that is recommending fix the infrastructure before you fix the brains.
yeah, it says that in the roadmap. And obviously it makes sense because it's cybersecurity, and obviously remote learning, we've been in this hybrid setting, and, you know, God willing, we're going to change that situation. But, you know, and Josh can attest to this, you know, cybersecurity, ransomware and so forth, the security is the priority. It absolutely has to be. And it says that in the document. So for me, and it might be a fiscal decision, you know, why they went that route, but everything within this document, they're recommending going that route first. And that is the priority. They say it specifically. And everything, the backup they sent, they say it specifically. So I personally would like to see that money allocated that way, because it's close, but, you know, it is what it is.
Josh, could you answer those?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot going on here. There's a big puzzle here, and unfortunately, like, you know, I think, you know, Justin, I appreciate your comments and I appreciate the suggestions and certainly the input into what your thoughts are based on what you're reading. Long story short is there's just not enough money in the pool, if you will. And unfortunately, you know, the vendor with the consultant that was brought in to evaluate the existing infrastructure noted that, you know, a couple of different deficiencies, one being, you know, the cabling inside the building is, for these phones that are currently wired, they're what they call Category 3 cabling, which is older than Category 5 and Category 6, and does not support the voice over IP or VoIP phones as currently wired. So I believe, according to the latest, that report that was presented, we could be talking over $2 million before we're all said and done with the district's, technology requirements at this point. So I think what they were trying to do here is replace their phone system, because it's a critical part of the component, as it currently sits right now, knowing the fact that obviously, they have to do it in a way that allows them to, move along without necessarily, because the overall goal was to essentially go to a voice over IP system, replace all the phones, replace, all the equipment. But again, there's just only so much money and only so much you can do in one physical year here. And they've been trying to do this phone system, I want to say now, for, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, but I believe the last 2 years.
2 years.
Well,
2 years plus.
Yeah, so it's definitely a long time coming, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of needs over there, but based on the initial presentation as far as the phones, they presented a hybrid solution, which means basically utilizing a lot of the same phones, keeping the same phones they currently have, and just replacing sort of the brains, and allowing them to move to a new platform in a way that allows them to get the support they need, because they unfortunately currently the system that they currently have is just no longer supported, because it's it's way beyond its life expectancy. At the end of the day, they would have to replace all the internal wiring, all their network gear, which again would be a significant cost in order to go that voice over IP complete redesign. So the last quote that we received, based upon the recommendation to solicit for an additional quote on a different system, the same system that the town's actually been using for a number of years, actually outlines and actually has the budget in there as far as what their existing numbers were, to allow them to actually replace the phones with new digital phones. So they're not going to go VoIP over IP, but at the same time they're replacing all of their phones with this last quote that came in. So they are going to get new equipment. They are going to have a new system. Long-term goal, again, having a hybrid system allows us to not only use the existing analog digital setup, but also allows us to use the voice over IP and expand accordingly. So when the time comes and the money is available to go ahead and replace all the network infrastructure, all the network switching at all the different buildings, and the cabling to go along with it, because again, having the cabling replaced is a significant cost in itself, never mind just replacing the network equipment that needs to be replaced in all of the different buildings to allow the actual voice over IP to happen. So again, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of information that needs to be digested, if you will. And I think at the end of the day, we're all working as diligently as we can to come up with a good overall solution based upon what we have available for funding. Because again, it would cost well over probably, I'd say, $500,000 or $400,000 to do all the work that we need to do. And it just, unfortunately, it's just not available in one single year without going out to bond for it.
Just quickly add to that. I take all that, Josh. I read it and I'm looking at it and I see obviously the hybrid solution to just get this all done. It's $345,000. And obviously, if I look at the network solution of what they said, just the network priority, it's $810,000. Simple math. So I understand why they went that route. I'm just saying, I personally, I'm worried about it that it says specifically it's going to be, the majority of the system is going to remain legacy and outdated, and support for new features is very limited. So I just don't know how long is this system going to last us, when, what's the plan? And that's the part of having the long-term vision and having a capital improvement plan, and say, all right, we obviously know the voice needs to be done, the network needs to be done, the whiteboards, et cetera, and all the different things. So it'd be good to know those things. And I think I've given my opinion on it
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, whatever way they necessarily go, I think, if they were to go this last route with the last quote that we received, you're going to be replacing all the phone systems in every building. So even though we're still going to be at a hybrid model, all your equipment is going to be brand new. And, it's not the fact that you're going to be end of life tomorrow or 3 years from now. The big difference is that obviously, adding a phone is just obviously depending on the situation. Moving forward, I think they would go ahead and obviously move to the IP when and in fact they could. So once they get the network infrastructure in place, which obviously again is important as well, then they can go ahead and start phasing out the analog and digital stuff. But from where they are today to where they need to be from a phone system perspective, I think they'd be happy to at least just get this piece completed at this point. And I'll push that off to Fred for further comments if that's not the case.
And one thing to keep in mind, Justin, when you're reading those figures, those are district figures, not Whitman figures. So when you're looking at that, there's the Whitman share and the district, and the Hanson share.
Yep.
So I mean that's a big difference as well. From what I was told, we will be able to utilize most of the components that we're doing right now. You're probably not going to see this technology, it's got to be in a long range plan, and you are talking a couple $1 million. You're going to see that maybe whittled away. We've got to figure out a way of how to accomplish it, but it's going to be in the years range, not next year or the year after, depending upon what happens with the Whitman Middle School project, cabling, wiring, etc. On that project will all get done with state reimbursement. So this is something. If the phones go down, we're in so much trouble. It's just.
I understand.
Too long.
No, I understand. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, no problem. So Fred, one quick comment too. I mean, as far as reusing the existing phones, that was in the original proposal. The new proposal that was released, again yesterday, I have to forward it to the committee. I don't know if they forwarded it or not, but it includes $32,000 in new phones to replace all the phones. So essentially, at the end of the day, all the phones are being replaced. There is no existing phones being reused like there was in the first proposal that was sent over. And again, we're actually at less money than we were initially at the overall proposal before. And before we weren't replacing the phone. So I think at the end of the day, I think you can see that the work that's being done, again, by myself and Steve, again, has been doing the bulk of the work from working with the vendors on their side, that we're actually getting to a less costly project, and at the same time replacing all of the equipment. So from the phone's perspective, that's not including any networking or any cabling like that. This is just specific phones. But again, taking out that annual support, again, we're down to 240,000. Basically, even if you round it up to 250,000, compared to what the overall quote was or initial proposal, it was over 300,000, I believe, initially. So,
yeah. So, and obviously, if we don't spend the money, the town's not charged the money. It's got to go out to bid anyways.
Don, did you have a question?
I did, but I think Josh kind of touched on it with the I guess the peripheral stuff, I'll call it, the physical phones. He said that they are included in for Duval, Conley, the middle school, and the high school.
Right.
Everything we're getting new phones now. I guess my question is with the middle school, not that it's probably a big portion of it. We can reuse the phones, right? For if we do a new middle school. That was my question last week, and I think the answer was yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there only one server? Is the server just at the high school? Or is every building got a server, and it's all networked together? How's the architect actually laid out?
So it's basically what they call a small community network, and you're going to have your site-based systems to allow the ability to dial out on analog phone lines if in fact the connection between the high school and the other buildings go down. they have to have the ability to be able to dial out, and they won't have that ability if they don't have sort of a site-based satellite device at each building. So, you know, that provides the backup redundancy in the event that they lose the connection between their buildings. So,
So for 250,000, say, that's for, it's a new front end and peripheral devices for every building, everything but the Cat 6 wiring.
yeah, there's no wiring and basically being done, but yeah, I mean, like I said, there's 193, according to this actual quote here, basically 290 total digital phones, 193 of them at basically $165 a piece, which is $32,000 just in, you know, phones, and then the additional phones that are, again, total about 290 total digital phones, you know, that were basically being, you know, replaced across the board. So I think at the end, the phone subtotal was like $37,395, and again, that's inclusive of the, you know, total that I had presented. I told you at the end here, which is basically, I think, what, 280,000 minus the 40,000. If we were to take that out for the annual maintenance, you're at roughly 240,000, just over $240,000.
So it's all the hardware and software, just no cabling for all buildings.
Yeah, you're using your existing cabling because, again, you're just replacing the phones as is. So you're putting a digital phone or an analog phone where there was previously a digital or analog phone.
Okay. All right. So it seems to make sense. It's a phasing approach. I understand why you guys are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, would love to be able to, you know, have that
Yep.
money to do everything, but it's just, unfortunately, you have to work with what you got, and that's what we're trying to do, and just trying to, you know, get what they need to get done, because we know that if this does in fact fail tomorrow, it's going to cost a lot more than what we're talking about today.
Okay, any further comments, questions on that? All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
No,
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
David, yes, Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
One question on it before I cast my vote. This is for Article 17 and 18?
just 17.
Just 17. Okay, yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
All right, 810. Okay, Article 18. To see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money. Transfer a sum of money from free cash and or available funds, or borrow a sum of $132,404, which represents 60% of the total cost of $222,340, to pay for Whitman's share of the cost to replace telephone system at the high school or take any action relative thereto. Motion,
I'll make that motion.
second,
Second.
Justin Evans, discussion.
I have one comment more than a discussion. I think where my concern is that I had last week with the fire alarm system, I think it is very similar to where Justin Casanova Davis is concerned with this. It would have been nice just to have the whole project scope on the table so we can look at all aspects of the cost. And it feels, if we had that, then we could understand, okay, we understand you're buying the hardware and software today, and we're looking to appropriate or at least throw into the capital plan the infrastructure. And I felt the same way last week with the fire alarm system. It was first I heard that we're just replacing the fire alarm control panel, but all the underlying devices need to be swapped out also. But it was the first I heard about it last week. And I know that that's going to be probably doubling the cost. So these are the things that I wish that we would have to make an educated decision on. The full scope of all the projects and understand why you're prioritizing, or at least, I guess, phasing the purchase. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Dave, I could.
Go ahead.
So Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the district did present a prioritized list recently that provided the phone system over the fire alarm system. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Actually, we met last night the facilities subcommittee and prioritize things. And the fire alarm panel is the last priority. Which I believe, I don't know if Dave sent it along earlier. I thought he did.
You did. I saw that. That was on there.
So we did prioritize everything. And
So
17 and 18, sort of go together, so to speak, because you really can't do one without the other. As far as that goes. To the district, and I'll just read off the priorities, and then I believe everyone on this committee has had for a little bit, and I know we were redoing it this year to try and make it far more easier to read and explain if needed. The capital matrix from the district, which does list all the projects, the scope, and when we feel we'll be asking for them, etc. It's something we want to give the foresight to. The district is very much aware that October 1st to have all of our, anticipated warrant articles or what we feel we're going to be asking for in at that time, so that it does provide this committee with a further amount of time, in which to look at things. But the priorities are, number one, the high school fire lane. Number two, the Duval and Conley generators. Number three, and we lump them together, the middle Duval and Conley schools phone system, as well as the high school. And then the number four priority was the high school fire panel.
What was the priority? And I don't have that sheet in front of me right now, but is the phone system just the 250K, not the infrastructure wiring that you prioritize?
Correct. Right? It's what the article.
With the fire alarm system.
It's Article 17 and 18. So instead of, there's 5 articles, but they listed 4 priorities because realistically you can't do one without the other. If the Conley Middle and Duval schools pass for the phone system and the high school doesn't, you can't go forward with the project anyways.
And to also take note that Town of Hanson already approved their portion of the funding last year, I think, or the year before too.
Last fall.
Last fall.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing what Don, I'll paraphrase you, tell me if I'm wrong, is that the concern is that that a project is presented, but what's not presented is the ancillary or future costs associated with that in order to see the full picture.
That's correct. Yep, that is my concern. And I understand that the department heads want to phase these things, but it's good, I think, for our committee, and it's exactly what we are, capital expenditures, for more than just this year. We want to try to put together a 5-year plan. So we should see the whole thing and then have this discussion with the experts like Josh and Fred being the end user. Say, okay, well, we really need the equipment first. We can, the infrastructure, as weak as it is, it'll satisfy us or bridge us for a year or two until we can budget for the rest. But it would be nice to have the whole picture right up front.
Fred and then Lincoln.
I mean, I like to look in the mirror because I would lay fault at our own selves. These warrant articles were taken off last year because it was felt there wasn't enough information. We knew that they were coming back this year. It's my fault, and I think, everyone else for not asking the questions, and perhaps my fault for not getting the district involved far earlier, knowing that this was definitively going to be something that would be on the warrant articles. So for that, I want to apologize to this committee. But we knew that this was coming when we took them off last year.
Okay. Lincoln, you had something?
No, I just wanted to sort of reiterate that I think, the 5-year capital plan that we'll have soon and that will reiterate and be better going forward after that In future years, I think will help answer some of, some of Don's very legitimate concerns. And, and I know that, that Fred wants to be a partner in that on behalf of the schools. And so, we'll work together to make it better, but I think that capital improvement plan will help answer a lot of these questions, because we'll be able to see in fiscal 23, here's the network, or in fiscal 24 or whatever it is. So we can, we can have exactly the picture that you're looking for, Don.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all. I think it just helps us, going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I says.
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I think, this assessment was recently done too. And I think from, the district's perspective, I think they understood the limited cash availability, if you will, as far as capitals and needs were concerned. And they obviously didn't, again, I'm not going to put my, words into their mouth, but I think at the end of the day, they wanted to put forward what they felt was the need at the moment, if you will, and whether they presented the entire picture to the committee, which they did, eventually at forwarding that documentation that was provided by the consulting firm to give everyone the heads up. But again, it was the 11th hour, I think, is when we're really getting this information and trying to make these decisions. So.
Mr. Chair, I know we're going to keep moving on, and just to go off of that, and that's exactly my point, Josh. They took a look at it. They said, all right, what's feasible, and it's sort of last minute. And exactly what Don was saying is what I'm looking for, is just to see that long-term picture, because maybe us as a committee say, you know what, maybe we can fund piecemeal the networking infrastructure, and that might be the priority, but they were too worried about the cost. And I think that's our role as a committee. And I wasn't here before, so I'm just reading the report, and I see that stuff that says, legacy outdated. I don't want to support that. I want to support new. I want to support or something that is going to, be sustainable. And the networking part was what I had saw in there, and I wasn't privy to those discussions before, so that's why I voted the way I did. But and Lincoln's already said it. We're going to be better. We're going to have that plan, and this information will be before us earlier. So I think we're all set. So thank you, everyone.
I agree 100% with what you just said, Justin. Even for a case study of what we did in the past. I mean, with when Ernie came looking for one generator on a trailer, it was this committee here that said that doesn't make sense. Just get 2 generators. And then we wanted to explore the natural gas compared to diesel. So I think that's where I think our expertise and this committee can really help. And just like what Justin said, if there's low-hanging fruit, like one of the small schools, maybe we could put the infrastructure wiring also into this if we had the money. I'm not saying we do, but maybe we can't. It might be crazy, but maybe we can't.
Josh?
Yeah, I don't want to keep spinning our wheels here on the same topic, but at the end of the day, who knows what's ahead of us? I don't know if, in fact, the American Recovery Act would provide an opportunity for us to utilize some funding to, provide the district with the ability to replace, their networking infrastructure, which could certainly be viable opportunity there to get the connectivity up to what they need to support the virtual learning or whatever learning is necessary based on the current circumstances. So at the end of the day, I think there's some, opportunity there. And if there is opportunity there at the same time, maybe that could change the whole aspect of this phone system, and maybe we could go fully voice over IP. So it could be a moot point at that point. So again, there's just some moving pieces that still, I guess, are unanswered as far as the, funding is concerned. I mean, who knows what's ahead of us in the next few months and what's going to be provided from the federal government too. So.
Last question, then I'll back off. But and this is really for you, Josh. But I know it's looking for a hardwired type of solution, voice over IP. Is there a wireless solution out there for this or not?
For phones?
Yeah.
I mean, you have your cordless phones, but no, you're not going to have a complete wireless, telephone system at this point. I think, the standard today is sort of voice over IP, basically, a network instead of the old wiring being tied. It just makes it easier when adding and removing phones. It's a lot easier just to plug into any port rather than have a specified port that you can only plug into one, a phone into this single port. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Okay.
I,
Thank you.
well, actually, they are doing USB dongles and Wi-Fi with assigning it a IP address. I took a phone that wasn't working properly, put it downstairs, has a USB dongle on it. It's a Yeeling T48S. Nice phone, you know, and it works flawlessly down there. You just can't hit 0 if you're dialing.
Yeah, I can't imagine the complexity to put that in hundreds of classrooms and to have these teachers trying to operate that kind of stuff. So
No,
definitely,
that's
we don't
a
want to add
different-
any more complexity to the overall environment today in the day we were dealing with today in the pandemic. So
Okay, anything else on that?
Can we move the vote?
Please. All right, so we have a motion and a second for Article 18, high school phone system. Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin, Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
No,
no. Josh McNeil,
yes,
David, yes. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
810. Okay. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from free cash and or available funds or borrow a sum of $40,000 for additional funding to complete the emergency generator project and transfer a switch or take any other action relative thereto. Duval and Conley Middle School,
Mr. Small,
Duval
make that
Conley
motion.
Schools emergency generator. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second,
Second, Justin.
Justin Evans, discussion, any further discussion on that? Okay, roll call vote. Josh McNeil,
yes,
David, yes. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis.
yes.
Okay, unanimous, 900. High school fire panel, Article 21.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think you missed Article 19.
Oops. Oh, the fire line. I saw high school. Yep, correct. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $34,500 to pay Whitman's share of the cost to repair the existing fire lane around the high school or take any other action relative thereto. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second,
Second,
Second.
Justin.
Justin Evans. Discussion. Any discussion on the fire lane? Earlier during this meeting, we saw some photographs provided, and I believe there's already money encumbered toward this project, so this is going to be supplemental to that, to those funds. Am I correct on that, Fred?
Correct. Correct.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a roll call vote. Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
yes,
David, yes. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Justin Evans.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Back to Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $44,000, which represents 60% of the total cost of $74,000 to pay Whitman's share of the cost to replace existing outdated fire panel or take any other action relative thereto. Motion.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second,
second,
Josh McNeil. Further, any discussion?
I just have one question. It was the same question I had last week was, do we know what the cost is for all the peripheral devices, the smokes, the poles, everything else that's kind of outdated too? Do we know what that cost is?
I don't believe they have a itemized breakdown. Maybe they shared something with you, Josh.
I might have it. I might be able to forward it off to you. I'll take a look at my email. The cost was, I think, definitely significant. As you can imagine, it's not just the devices, it's the wiring in between that may need to be replaced depending on the detectors that are being added. If it would be a lot easier if it was essentially just a swap for a swap, but I want to say there was rewiring that was involved, and it would have to be done by either an electrician, in-house electrician, or be outsourced on a project basis.
I thought that the Siemens, where it was the panel, that the peripherals were plug and play. I'm pretty sure that that's what we were told last week.
Yeah, again, I'd have to look back at the actual quotes. We've gone through so much stuff over the last 2 months. It's amazing.
Last week, I think I asked for a couple things, and I think this is the only part that we haven't received anything this week on this. And a couple things I was looking for was, we're missing the opportunity to competitively bid this with all other fire alarm manufacturing companies outside of Siemens. If we just replace the front end fire alarm control panel with just a Siemens, then we're locked into a Siemens with the peripheral devices too. We lose our competitive buying power. And that's why I'm glad you guys pushed this down to priority 4. So I think we should look at that. I mean, that would be my recommendation, that if everything is coming to its end of life cycle, then we should look at a global replacement. The wiring probably is going to stay the same. I can't see the wiring. It's a addressable panel, so I'm sure the wiring is going to stay the same for all the components. But I think if we have to swap out all the smokes, pulls, in-duct smoke detectors and all that stuff, and then the fire alarm control panel also, we're missing a great opportunity to upgrade the entire system. Might be more money, which I'm sure it will be, but at least we can competitively bid it out to more people than just Siemens.
But are we looking at, a small amount, or are we looking at, I think it's a substantial amount of money, and I think there was quite a hesitancy to replace something that we weren't under the gun to replace and keep cost or the request as low as possible.
I think the only way to answer that question, Fred, would be to competitively bid it. I think once you're locked into a proprietary manufacturer, they've got you, hook, line, and sinker. They've got you. You can't go elsewhere. So I think the only way to answer that question would be to competitively bid it. I'm kind of glad that the district pushed this off to a priority 4.
So again, let me dumb this down just for my understanding. So Don, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So I think what you're saying is a better approach is to bid what would be anticipated to be the entire project, because this particular project in the phones, it's not just one thing that you need to do. You need to do a multitude of things once you get started. So as a full project. So what you're saying is it'd be better to get the full project costs through all these different vendors and then decide, okay, my step 1 is going to be the fire panel based on the estimates of the full projects from these vendors. I want to choose this one because of whatever reasoning that they use. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. I mean, to simplify it, you have the front end system that's proprietary, that will the fire alarm control panel. If it's a Honeywell, it'll only talk to Honeywell devices. If it's a Siemens, it'll only talk to Siemens devices. If it's a Simplex, it'll only talk to Simplex devices. And if we're keeping the Siemens end of line devices, then we just have to, we can't shop around for a new fire alarm control panel from any other vendor other than this is a Siemens, right? Siemens. So it really restricts us on competitively bidding things, where if we know, it would be one thing if we felt that our end of line devices were, we can get another 10 or 15 years out of them. But from what I learned last week from Fred, that they're right around the corner too. Like they have to be thrown away and replaced also. I think we should lock the whole project together. I really do.
Okay, and Josh, just give me 1 second. So actually, now that I think about it, because you have, so you have a fire panel, then the devices associated with that. So in that they all communicate because they're one vendor's product. But so now if you change, if you do one part of a project, if the thought process is that the project is too costly to do the whole thing, and they're going to do it in phases, I think it sounds to me that they're almost stuck using the same vendor, because you still need to communicate. Changing the fire panel, you still need to communicate with the existing devices. Excuse me. Am I saying that right, Josh?
Yeah, so essentially, I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, certainly Siemens, panels are certainly proprietary. So essentially, you are locking yourself in. I mean, we're dealing with not just fire panels these days that are in that same predicament, but we do have silent night panels on the town side that are sort of open source, if you will. So we can have multiple vendors working on them. We can have the opportunity to use different devices. Whereas from a Siemens perspective, that's I think the simplex panels in the beginning were installed in the buildings when the high school was actually built. So what they're trying to do is just replace the panel to get themselves upgraded to the point of being able to be supported again, and not be dealing with false alarms and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it would be nice to be able to replace the end devices. I mean, they have a 10-year lifespan. And not being replaced since the building was open. What is that now, 16 years, Fred? Is that about right? So I think it's almost to the point where they should have been replaced twice, if you will, if we go 4 more years out. So I mean, certainly there's a significant cost to replacing the endpoint devices, and I'm sure you could come in, go out to bid and get a cheaper project. But again, we're probably talking a significant amount of more money, regardless of the savings from the bidding process.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Fred, and then we'll go to Justin.
2 things. Number one, that's not saying that if you went with a Honeywell system, now you're stuck with Honeywell. It's probably catch-22. Anything that you put in there, you're then going to be stuck. I wouldn't assume that they're going to make theirs talk with Siemens products, per se, or other companies.
Honeywell is a leader in the industry. They own Notifier, they own Silent Night, they own Firelight, they own Honeywell. It's much more open source, like what Josh just said, if we went with a Honeywell system.
Yeah.
If we go with a Siemens or a Simplex, we're just locked into just Siemens or just Simplex.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I mean, we got an EST fire panel at the police station and an EST fire panel at the town hall. Those are the only EST panels we currently have. And again, those are in the same situation as the Siemens. We need to call certain companies out that can only service the panels. They're not sort of open source. They give us the ability to use whatever vendors we want to use, based on state contract. And it becomes a lot more complex to get service, to replace devices, because you have to use a certain manufacturer devices. Again, the long-term costs associated with proprietary panels are certainly a lot, larger, considering you're sort of locked in. At the end of the day, it's definitely a disadvantage of these types of panels.
I mean, are we as a town able to absorb the cost of replacing everything? B, if the panel, and we can roll the dice. I mean, you can tell the schools, hey, you prioritize this last, there's no money, roll the dice. But if that panel does go, now you're paying for a fire detail, you're probably paying overtime for that panel to get replaced. Excuse me, and they have you over a barrel, so to speak. If we put something out to bid, and Lincoln could perhaps clarify this, I don't know that we have to take the least expensive bid.
So it would depend on whether or not it was invitation for bids or request for proposals. So I probably in this case, we would the schools would decide to go with an invitation for bids, in which case you'd need to take the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for.
So you could end up with another Siemens system anyways, or a Simplex that's proprietary.
Yeah, I mean, depends on the, look, I mean, I have no idea, you know, it's a complete replacement of the program of the components rather than just the fire panel. I have no idea. I mean, do we have a complete picture as to what that expected total cost would be? A lot more than $74,000, right? I don't know what it is. Josh and Don may have a clearer picture of that, but the simple answer is you'd probably, I would think, be doing an invitation for bids and not a request for proposals. And if it was an invitation for bids, you'd be taking the lowest bidder that meets your specifications, who's responsive and responsible.
Justin, did you have something?
Yeah, no, I think Josh touched on it about the proprietary. I think the long-term costs sometimes will be more exorbitant than if you took a look at exactly what the scope of the project is. And that's where I agree with Don, because at the end of the day, let's say the scope of the project costs $500,000 and we have a replacement for $44,000. And if we stick with the Siemens thing, it's going to be what, $400,000. Then we'll say, all right, replace the Siemens panel. But what if this replacement is $250,000 and the long-term cost of Siemens is $550,000 because it's proprietary? It's good just to have that information. And I think that's what Don's getting. Let's just see the big picture of it and have that bid and then see that. So I kind of agree with Don. But I catch Fred's point too, because, if the whole system goes down, then it's an emergency replacement and that's even more costly. So we're kind of caught in between two here, but I'd like to have more information and then you can make that the best decision, long-term decision.
Yeah, I mean, $44,000 isn't anything to I mean, it's a fairly good sum of money, but maybe the next discussion, if this were to pass, maybe the next discussion is, okay, well, let's get a full bid including a new fire panel and see who comes in, comes in better. Maybe there's better options. So this $44,000 is essentially a Band-Aid. And then, maybe there are better options out there sometime in the future. And then, it's kind of a Band-Aid fix now. And then you're doing a full project somewhere in the future.
Yeah, I'll have the numbers to you. I just had Steve forward me a document that I believe he already had forwarded to the committee. Basically a voted annual town meeting 5/4/15 back in 2015, when the actual district sent forward the proposal to replace the fire panel as well as the devices. So we do have, I believe, the estimated cost on basically the entire amount. So, I mean, I can bring that up if I find
for the high school, or was that for one of the elementaries?
No, I believe it was for the high school in addition to the elementary schools. But again, I have the document in front of me. It's quite in lengthy, so it's 18 pages, I think. So I'm gonna read through it, and when we continue our meeting here, I'll see if I can find the exact page.
And you said Steve Burke forwarded to the committee?
No, I believe he had forwarded it to, I believe it might have been you that forwarded it to the chair, I believe. But I could be wrong. I'll forward it over to you now so everyone can take a look at it.
That'd be great.
Fred, can you remind us, I believe Hanson has already appropriated share or not?
Hanson has appropriated this already.
Last year, I believe.
Last fall.
Last fall.
In the special town meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on the high school fire panel?
Oh, I just have one last thing. So the district themselves put this as a priority 4. So this is down even in the district's opinion.
Compared to the other articles that we put forth.
Right.
It was the mindset of what we were putting forth, that everything was a definitive need. And, to really try and prioritize, you really couldn't, because we need everything. We didn't ask for anything that we felt that we didn't need immediately or need this year. If that makes any sense.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, concerns?
So
Just
are we voting on this or are we holding off or what?
We got a motion in the second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
Just
Good.
before we vote, Josh, do you have a ballpark of what they were pricing out for in that document?
I don't have a ballpark on the devices
Okay.
themselves. So like I said, that's why I don't know if we want to skip over it for now and go back to it before we close the meeting out tonight and see if I can find the info or.
Okay, so we have, well, let's think about this procedurally. We have a motion and a second to approve. So we would need to, I think we would need to vote and then entertain another motion if so desired.
If people feel like they need a little more information that Josh can identify during the meeting, I would suggest I would make a motion to delay the vote until that, a further motion to delay the vote until that information comes from Josh.
Okay, so that would require,
I mean, I can rescind my motion if the second is rescinded.
okay, so we have we have a motion to rescind the original motion to vote. Do I have a second on that?
I think
Second.
Josh could rescind his second. Yeah.
Oh, Josh has to.
Oh, so does the second need to be from the original second? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
Josh, would you like to second that?
Yes, I'll second that.
So, all right. So we don't need a vote to table this for our next meeting. All right. So, all right. So, Lincoln, do you want to include the last two, the two newest capital articles?
Sure. Since we're on this document, Mr. Chairman, if we may, could we would now be an appropriate time to have the conversation about Article 27, or do you want to move to the other one?
I do want to talk about Article 27, but if we could just
Sure.
just through the next
Yep.
two.
No problem. Let me just find it. Just a minute.
Thanks.
Lincoln, I have that one if you want me to put it up.
Sure. If you have it handy, that'd be great.
I
Thanks.
have it handy. Yeah. I just remember which PDF it is.
Perfect. Okay,
you
so
go.
Article to be determined, accept Chapter 90 road grant monies to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator to accept such sums of money as may be distributed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through Chapter 90 Highway Grant Program. So-called funds to be expended by the Department of Public Works in accordance with the guidelines and requirements of the Massachusetts Highway Department, or take any other action relative thereto, proposed by the Town Administrator. Essentially, that's just approving the monies reimbursed by the state, which is a number determined by the state. So I'll entertain a motion on that.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second,
Second,
Bob Curran. Any further discussion? So this is not money from currently in Whitman. It's monies from the state to Whitman.
Correct. So we, the town, spend the money and then are reimbursed later. And the reason I don't necessarily agree with, but anyway, the reason that the State Department of Revenue says you need to appropriate it is because you do not have the grant monies in hand so far. So, so this is just allowing the town to spend the monies prior to the receipt later after when they are reimbursed later.
And that's a dollar figure that will be determined by the state and provided to Whitman prior to their doing the work.
So it's reimbursed. So we won't necessarily know the complete dollar amount for this year that we will be reimbursed in the future until later. However, we do know what was reimbursed for last year. It's a reimbursement program. So no, we won't necessarily know the precise dollar amount right now, but we won't overspend what we will receive when we know we will receive it. Does that make sense? Is it, that's complicated, but true. Does that make sense though?
It does to me. Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote. Lincoln,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Don,
Yes,
Fred,
Yes,
Bob,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis.
Yes.
Still with us, Josh?
Yes.
The yes to a vote?
Yes.
And David, unanimous. And last one here is the police vehicle article to be determined. To see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from free cash and or available funds or borrow the sum of $60,000 or another sum to purchase and equip one police vehicle or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Small, make that motion.
Second,
I'll second that.
Josh, Justin Evans, discussion. I have one question, Lincoln. So $60,000 or another sum?
That's just if town meeting, that phrase doesn't necessarily need to be there, but that's just if town meeting decided on another sum.
Oh.
To see if the town will, but the figure is $60,000.
Okay, any further question on that? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote. Justin Evans,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes,
Don,
yes,
Aaron,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
David, yes, Josh McNeil,
Yes.
and Justin Casanova Davis.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. All right, so that's other than the article that was tabled, that's all the capital articles. If Lincoln, if you want to share the Article 27 draft on the draft warrant. All right.
Yep.
So, as you know, as I mentioned here before, the article that established this committee was the special town meeting of May 2015. I utilize it as much as I can to try to define our roles here and whether or not, define our roles. This is being proposed by Lincoln to change some of the language. And Lincoln, I don't know if you have, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so I can just, I know we spoke about it at a previous meeting, but I can just refresh the committee's memory about what changes this would make. So one, it would rename the committee to the Capital Committee. Number two, it would clarify, right now, in my opinion, it's unclear that a member of the school committee, it says a liaison, and this clarifies that in this case, Fred is a voting member, not simply a liaison. I kept in that language for the liaison, so that voting member would be appointed from the school committee by the Board of Selectmen. I kept in the language regarding the liaison in case the school district wanted to have a liaison, a non-voting liaison to the committee. I don't know if they do or not, but it does clarify that the school committee member, as appointed by the Board of Selectmen, is a voting member. It further clarifies that really the two other changes. One, it removes the language that is currently in there that says that the part of the committee's duties would be to manage capital projects. In my opinion, that should be a function of the department heads. And if that's not happening, and if I'm not doing it as town administrator, the Board of Selectmen, that is to say, a management role, rather than a recommending role, which is, primarily the function of the committee. So, happy to talk about that further if anybody wants to sort of further discuss that issue. And then just to finish that. So originally rather than 10, defining capital as the useful life of greater than 5 years and a value of more than $10,000 or more, originally had to moving it up to $25,000, but I respect Mr. Small's opinion very much, and he had suggested 20,000, and I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense too. I do think it should be higher, just best practices for what should be considered a capital item. Just inflation, if nothing else, has occurred in the interim, and I think it would help the general budgeting process and make it more efficient. So it makes it $20,000 and makes no other changes. Keeps in, I would stress, keeps in the language regarding timely receipt by the committee of suggested capital items in the fall, as opposed to what it's sort of turned into, not necessarily through anyone's fault, but to make it clear that the committee for its evaluation should be receiving capital requests earlier in the process. So, like I said, obviously happy to take any conversation about it. It would be great to get a vote from the committee, hopefully in favor, if folks see fit. I think that would be helpful.
So Lincoln, could you scroll down a little bit? So based on our discussions earlier today, do you think it's necessary to change the language in the sentence here? Request capital spending shall be request for capital spending shall be submitted by the committee by October 1st. Where'd it go? Just lost it.
Yeah, request for capital spending shall be submitted to the committee by October 1st of each fiscal year, and the committee shall evaluate and prioritize requests in order to prepare a capital budget and present requests for funding to town meeting.
Yeah, so prioritize is going to be the key word that I have.
Sure.
I mean, based on again, we'll go around in circles discussing it. Maybe should that sentence maybe be changed to maybe avoid that?
I mean, if it's the will of the committee to, instead of having it say shall evaluate and prioritize, but to simply say shall evaluate requests. I mean, I would think, I certainly, if that's what the committee wants, I'm certainly be in favor of that. And I can't imagine that, the Board of Selectmen would have an issue with changing that.
Just
Sure. Go ahead, Justin Evans, and then
I don't know. I should ask Justin, right?
so yeah, I just I do see the future of this committee really being in developing a capital improvement plan for long-term planning, and part of that would be prioritizing when projects occur. So I think that is an important part of the role of this committee going forward. It does get a little muddled when we're trying to prioritize within a given year when we're only presented with so many requests, but part of the long-term plan of this committee is to have an ongoing capital improvement plan that would include priorities.
Okay, Justin Castanova.
Don't waste time. I agree with Justin, and I just want to commend Lincoln for these proposed changes. I think they're prudent. So yeah,
Thank you.
Sure.
Fred?
Instead of prioritize, what if we use the word classify? In other words, we had, 3 classifications: immediate need, imminent need, and need within 5 years. We assign a quote unquote tag, to every project in that manner.
Well, I think the goal is, and Lincoln, tell me if I'm wrong, the goal is once we have the capital improvement plan in place, that will show a 5-year progression. So we'll know what so based on department heads information provided to this committee, and we're putting these into yearly columns, we'll know what's imminent.
Oh, but at the same time, with all due respect, I've seen projects for the schools that we put on the capital matrix as needing to be done, and you put in, 2 years later, 3 years later, and 2 years later, you're bumping it out another year. Then you're bumping it out another year. I don't want to see that happen to anything that we're looking at. As far as what we're looking at, when we're recommending something or not recommending. And then what is the ultimate teeth of the committee? Is it to recommend the project go forward and find a funding source? Or are we also finding the funding source, etc., and recommending on that manner?
So the concern is for those projects that continue to get bumped out. How do you get bumped to future years? How do you categorize them? How do you prioritize them?
Well, like for instance, I'll give you an example. We had carpeting, in various areas of some schools. That Whitman Middle was one of them. That we had on the matrix, and I want to say it was on there for 7 or 8 years. When you talk about the fire alarms right now, we've had those sensors on the matrix, and they just get pushed back. Year after year, we bring it up and we're told, no, there's no money for it, and whatnot. So I just want to be cognizant of that when we, start prioritizing, etc., that we have a 5-year plan. And if we accept something, quote unquote, maybe like MSBA does it, if it's accepted into the pipeline, it's going to get funded and get done within X amount of years. Maybe that's, the way we do it on the capital request once we vetted it. And there may be a capital request that we say, come on, we're not buying you water filters or something, to that nature.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, so I think a good capital improvement plan, 5-year capital improvement plan from my perspective is aspirational. So things change, and I appreciate the existing language for the committee's charge, which recognizes that things come up and an emergency happens, and the plan should not be so rigid as to not account for that, and because things do happen, because something does break, etc. So I think that's part of it. And, and I know with Fred's help, I think there definitely will be some great cooperation with the school district to identify, their priorities. But obviously, it does, having the October date, for example, does depend on that cooperation. And, I'm sure with Fred's help, it'll happen. But at the end of the day, whether this committee has a say in it or not, there are limited revenues. And if it's, if there are revenues available to do a project, then great. And if they're not, then the decision is either A, is it on town meeting at all? And if it is, are we borrowing for it? And is that borrowing within the cap or a Proposition 2.5 override, right? So,
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I've got, with the 20,000, I think that's a good number. I think where the committee was originally created to have some oversight on capital projects, and to remove that portion from this committee, I question that. I'm hesitant on that, I should say. I think it should be this committee's role to hand it back to the department heads, but just recreating the verbiage in here that says it is no longer this committee's role to at least have input into a project. If we're not doing that, if we're just prioritizing or categorizing or classifying projects, then we don't have much of a function then. I think our function should be to have oversight of the projects. You get the building commissioner. what a world of knowledge. Josh with the technical, unbelievable knowledge that these departments are going to anyways. We should be using these resources instead of, chopping us off at the knees and just giving it back to the departments. I think 99% of the projects will be handed back to the departments, but I think it should be this committee that makes that decision. I don't think we put that in the language here.
Go ahead, Lincoln.
No, so I just, words have different meanings for different people, but I want to make it clear what is in my mind when we're talking about managing projects, and how my understanding is how it may have been interpreted in the past, is that, this, in my mind, this committee absolutely has a role in oversight to make sure projects are happening. But my understanding is that in the past, that, managing a project may have been interpreted in a different way. That is to say, having a direct role, for example, in issuing an invitation for bids or a request for proposals for a project, or, on a weekly basis, making sure a contractor is doing what they need to do to get a project done. And so to that end, I do not believe that day-to-day management is a volunteer committee's role. It's no offense against the committee or any individual members or anything, but I do believe that is the role of staff to make sure that policy is being implemented, but that it is not the volunteer committee's role to implement that policy. But that said, I want to be really clear. If what is in folks' minds with respect to managing a project is making sure in a long-term process from a policy perspective that a project is happening, I mean, I know I'm happy, and I would certainly ensure that any department provides the updates that this committee wants to hear about what's going on with a particular project. But I think the issue maybe is what we mean by managing a project. And I don't, in my humble opinion, it's staff's role to implement a policy of getting the project done. But definitely this committee, if it wants it, would continue to have a role from my perspective in getting a status update, for example. Does that make sense? I mean,
I think it does, but I think it should be expanded a little bit to have oversight. I think that's what it was created for oversight. And I think to remove the oversight portion, I don't want to manage anybody's project. That's not where I'm going with this. But I think we should have oversight to understand, just like some of the in-depth conversations that we've had tonight about phone systems, about fire alarm, about this type of stuff. I think this network of committee members has a world of knowledge that can only add to any of these projects, these capital expenditures, and we're all part of it.
Yeah, we in past meetings, we did have this discussion as well as how did this committee define manage? I think we did come to the conclusion that what Don just said was manage wasn't the day to day, but it did include something to the effect of providing our knowledge base in terms of preparing bid requests or the terms of not the terms of the bid, but a bid, if we identified something missing. So we have done that in the past, and I think that's where we held that's how we define manage. But I don't know, does anyone else, if comments from anybody else would be appreciated here.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I would tend to say, I agree with Lincoln. And this is my profession as well. You want your professionals to manage the project. And I think all the questions that we had Dawn, myself, you, that's just part of prioritizing and understanding the project. So I don't think changing the managing and oversight will inhibit that ability. That is our duty. That's my understanding. I think the charge says that. But in terms of managing oversight, that's the department heads, that's Lincoln and information that we request about a project. Lincoln, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a standard. We'll be able to ask those questions and they'll report back to us. In terms of,
Absolutely. I
Exactly.
can't imagine any piece of information that is ever requested by this committee. You will get. You
exactly.
have my assurance that you will receive it.
So when we say specifically managing, et cetera, I don't think that language should be in there. I've never seen that language in any community that I've worked with. So I think it's a necessary change, me personally. So that's my people.
Anybody else? I can't see anyone, so please speak up.
I agree with Lincoln as far as, the structure of this, defining the committee's roles and responsibilities, the fact that a professional or department head should be the ones that are overseeing a project. That doesn't mean that we couldn't get a status update here and there, but it should be the people that know what they're doing. I mean, heck, if we were overseeing, if there was a technology project, I have no way to tell Josh how to do something. He knows far more than I do, as far as that goes. I mean, that's stuff that makes your head spin. When it comes to building and, are things being done right, or we're going to have, hopefully in the near future, a DPW building going up, Bob Curran's the perfect person, to be, hey, this is what's going on with it, pop, 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 and we get a little bit of a status update, to bring people so that we're not disinvolved out of the project, but we're not taking on, we're a volunteer committee. The professionals are going to be the ones that are going to drive the project itself. The 20 grand I'm fine with, evaluating, what we have in the pipeline, developing that 5-year plan. I think this may even be a living document that, may be subject to change in a year or two as we feel the need to define, things differently or define things greater. I think Lincoln, you did a heck of a job for a first draft, so to speak, for us to put this out and start to try and live it and see what happens.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll just add really quickly, if you don't mind, thank you, Dave, for bringing this up. I anticipate on April 20th, when the Board of Selectmen is reviewing the warrant articles, that they would have asked how this committee felt about it. So I'm glad that we will get an answer. And with that said, I'd like to move that this committee recommends the article as presented.
Second.
So we got a motion, a second, to approve as written. Any further discussion? Again, please speak up because I can't see everybody.
So there's 3 changes, correct? One is the dollar cap for deciding what a capital project is. 2 is removing the word manage, which I'm totally fine with removing the word manage. I don't think anybody here should be managing paid employees, a department project. And what was the third? There was 3 items.
There's actually 4. So renaming the committee to the capital committee.
Right.
And clarifying that the school committee member is appointed by the Board of Selectmen and is a voting member, not a non-voting member.
And just to clarify, I'm a appointed member of this committee. I did accept from the school committee to be the liaison. Full disclosure, I tried to get out of it. And they just kept pointing back, well, you're there anyways. Because I felt that there, perhaps would be some separation. I look at my role as being a Whitman resident and looking out for what's best for Whitman, and trying not to wear that school committee cap, so to speak, but share what I know about what's going on there.
Yeah. It really sort of just institutionalizes your current role, Fred,
Sure.
to be
Do
honest.
we
with you.
need to define the terms? In other words, you're appointed for a 3-year term, or it says
So
overlapping.
so the terms are 3 years now, and they continue to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so if this were to pass, well, I guess every year we would ask the school committee if they want to, well, based on the current the current language, we would ask the school committee if they wanted to appoint a liaison, a non-voting member. On the new language, I guess we would ask that as well, and they would have the ability to appoint a voting member to the committee.
Board of Selectmen would be
The
doing that.
selectmen would appoint the, I believe in practice, the selectmen would ask the school committee to recommend somebody. But
Oh,
I don't know if that's even needed.
a representative of the Whitman Hanson Regional School District shall be appointed by the district to serve as a liaison to the committee.
That I could understand, but having, the committee shall consist of 9 members, including 1 selectman, the town administrator. A member of the school committee is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Unless,
Right.
unless it's the board's pleasure, to definitively have someone on school committee. Like, for instance, what happens if I don't get reelected? I would assume I would still be on this committee because I had a 3-year appointment.
Correct.
So
I would think so.
So, but my point is that if the Whitman Hanson Regional School District did not appoint a liaison, that position would remain open until they did.
correct. And I just have to clarify, I believe when I switched from an at-large appointee to the selectman representative, there was no term defined. It was not a 3-year term for the named positions at the top, because I could lose an election and not be a member of the committee anymore.
Okay.
That I
Go
think
ahead.
that's a good point, Justin. So for example, if I was not town administrator, I would not be on this committee. So
Okay. Justin, did you have something else? Justin Casanova Davis?
No, thank you.
Okay. So any further discussion on this? We have a second and a motion to approve as written. All right. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Don Essen,
Yes.
Fred,
yes,
Bob,
Yes,
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes,
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
David, yes, Lincoln,
yes.
yes, Aaron,
Yes.
yes. All right. So that's 9-0. Unanimous. So we have, to sum this all up, we have one final article that is tabled to approve. And I've asked the recording secretary to provide us with meeting minutes. So she's going to send those over as soon as possible. We've gotten 3 done, but that's, we probably have about, 1, 2, 3. We probably have 9 to go through. So we have scheduled a meeting for, it's today, the 15th, which is next week. So for the next 3 Thursdays, hopefully if she can get that information over to me, and I can distribute it soon, I'll put whatever she sends over. Yeah, hold on a second, Josh. I'll put whatever she sends over onto the agenda in the anticipation that we could just get through as many as possible and then table whatever for a following meeting. Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to prolong the meeting anymore, but I mean, I did forward you over the quote that Steve sent me over regarding the devices for the high school. So I do have the number now in front of me, and I do have some information, but I'm not sure. Again, I know it's 8:30 and we've been meeting now for 3 hours, so I don't know what the committee's choice is, whether or not we want to continue on here and talk for the next half an hour or just,
Probably 5 or 10 minutes, I would
Yeah.
hope.
No, let's
Power
end this
through.
for tonight. It's 3 hours.
Yeah,
All right. All right. So I'm hearing shutting it down. We're shutting it down.
shutting it down.
All right. So I would
Motion.
need a motion from Bob, second.
Second,
Justin Evans, roll call vote. Don,
Yes,
Fred,
Yes,
Bob,
Yes,
Justin Evans,
yes.
Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Josh,
yes.
David, yes, Lincoln,
Yes.
and Aaron. So yeah,
Yes.
thank you. So that's the end of the meeting. So yep, so that's what we'll do. Hopefully we'll get all those meeting minutes. We'll fly through that, get through that next get through that last article.